dear interns, this is going to be a multilingual panel. We have three important guests who are going to be speaking Portuguese, and I will try to translate into Spanish. Welcome, Renata, Demi, and Percival.
Oi, bom dia, tudo bem?
Boa tarde.
Ah, boa tarde para vocês. É verdade. Muito obrigada pela participação nesse painel. Vou falar um pouco em espanhol, depois vou dar a palavra para vocês. E minha ideia é a seguinte: infelizmente não temos tradução ao português, então se vocês falam, eu posso depois traduzir ao espanhol. Ou se vocês falam devagar, e vocês
She's
conseguem.
given the explanation of how translation from and into Portuguese is going to work.
Ok, primeiro vou fazer uma
I
introdução
will
geral
first introduce the
de
topic.
que é muito importante que
Something very important, and we've been speaking about this. We've been speaking about the multi-participative model, a general review internationally of this multiple stakeholder model with the dialogue of the private sector, government, civil society, academia, and every player. Brazil, and always say this, Brazil created, when was it? She's asking how many, 30 years ago? When Brazil created 30 years ago a multi-stakeholder space, very formal, that works pretty well, which is a role model everywhere. This is why first I wanted to commemorate this anniversary, which is very important, and to underscore the value of this space that SSIG has created and consolidated. The three play a very important role in SSIG. Renata, she is the general secretary. And then Demi, he is like the Latin American being served together with Oscar. Here he is with us. They are our Latin American been served. He is an internet pioneer. And Percival, he is a pioneer of connectivity as well, specifically in the northeastern part of Brazil. And together with him, we organize the school in the city of Campina Grande in the state of Paraí in 2023. I really appreciate the three of them to be here with us today. And I would like you to please share to tell us what is the story of SSIG. What do you see? How do you see the future? And I know there is an important discussion about the functioning of CGI and how the future could be. We have interns from Brazil. How many do we have from Brazil? We have some Brazilian interns in this room, and maybe they are going to have questions after your presentation.
vocês compreenderam o que foi uma introdução, ok? Quem deseja começar? O Demi, o
She's asking who wants to start.
Percival? Percival,
Percival.
Percival. Ah, bem, agora sim, né?
No, Demi. It was disconnected. It was disconnected.
Era difícil de escuchar.
It was difficult to hear. Then
Sim, agora te escuchamos, Percival.
we can hear you now, Percival.
Ok, quem deseja começar? Percival?
Who would like to start?
Entonces, Demi poderia empezar de mejor porque
Demi can start because he can speak about the story, the history,
falou que
the history.
seguir.
I have a presentation on Nickber. But since we are here, if you want, we can start. Yes, you can share it very, very quickly. I will not waste time. And at the end, the questions, we'll see how to answer them in case there are questions.
Puedes compartir de tu
Would you
computadora.
please share? Here first we have slides about, it is a timeline. As you know, ARPANET has data. Um, it was born in 1969, October. It's been 38 years that we have had academic connections. It was not internet, it was bitnet, and then .beer. It was finished in 1989, and this is when the national network of development, when it was inaugurated, we started to have CPPIP traffic in 1991. We had a very important event in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. It is important for the networks because they needed internet connection. We had a way to make it. Then we had the creation of CGI 30 years ago. This year, we have the most important celebration, and we have other things, and we need to get all this involved. No, there's nothing here. It is the reason why ARPANET became important, and it was a connection between the machines and the network. And this was the beginning of internet. That was the reason why it is so different compared to other commercial networks of that time. And intranet stayed because of this component. The next one, please. This is the plate that we find. I took that picture, for that photograph, and it is the beginning of the network. The next one, please. This is also very quick, fast. Why am I presenting this? Because CGI, since the beginning, it's been synchronized. It's been uh, synchronized with the initial concepts of internet. I believe it is very, very important. So we have neutrality in the network. We have that in a legislation, a very well internationally prepared law based on the Decalogue, and I will be speaking about it. We have the intention to preserve the original concepts of internet, and this is an important difference. This is what John Perry Barlow said in the Independence Declaration. It is not that romantic. Maybe today it doesn't apply, but it is in the principle of the network, and I have it here. And here we have an important statement by Bin Cerf 10 years ago when we presented a CGI Decalogue. It was in Lithuania. He said internet is a mirror and of what the society represents, and if what we look at, if we do not like what we look at in the mirror, breaking the mirror will be useless. The society is going to be the same. So it is an important thought. This is John Costello. He said we need to be liberal in what we accept, conservative ones in what we do. And then we have another statement by CGI. CGI is always trying to attain consensus results. We do not vote frequently. Renata can speak about this. But we always try to reach a consensus. And as Barlow said, and not only in the cyberspace, It is difficult to say. It is difficult to not see actions. There is always an action. It is something important in internet. This is not important. It was a classic internet. So we get involved with this. There are resources that need a central coordination. The DNS, the root servers, IP numbers and protocols, and this is evidently what we're interested on. This is simply to show you that domain names were created, and this is when they became important at the end of 1995, because before that there were only a few names, but as of 1995, exponential increase, and now we have many, many names. The next one, please. The next one is better. This is a material by Steve Crocker, very important, because we use the word internet in a non-accurate way. To me, internet is whatever goes on IP, but in applications grow on the network, on internet, but it will not be internet. It is important to see the difference, because if we speak about regulation of internet, it is an STP or HTTP or TCP. We're speaking about the regulation of something that is on top of that, and it could be good or bad, but it is not mistaken by what we have down there, which is the actual internet. In 1994, here we have government, and it announced it would give access to internet for individuals, for natural people. This was noticed by Embratel in December 1994. It is an important movement to internet. Brazil. It was an expansion of the original internet, which was academic, for something with commercial components, people. So in Brazil, this is the beginning of all this. The next one, please. And in 1995, this is when CGI was created, as Renata can better explain. It is included in other important events. The first one is the standard number 4 of the Ministry of Communications that defines and what it is. The value added service, something that is added to the telecommunications network, but it is not telecommunications, and this added value will define what is a connection to internet, the connection point, and it will define something that is going to be seen in the next a resolution the same day. An internet coordinator, which is a committee, it was created on the same day, May 31st, 1995. The next one, please. And 1997, 2 years after CGI, we have the General Law of Telecommunications in Brazil, and in Article 60 and 61, it will define the telecommunication service, the value-added service, and it is an activity and that is helping the telecommunications system, but it will not be mistaken. There's no confusion. Different things. New usefulness and the value added service is not a telecommunication service. This is very important because the CGI is based on this. Here we have the composition of CGI. Here we have the composition: 9 government representatives, 4 from the entrepreneurial sector, 4 of the third sector, and then we have 21 members, and no one has a majority. The government has a very important presence. The coordinator of CGI He represents the Minister of Science and Technology, Renata. She is a coordinator, and this is a composition of 2003. It is not a composition of 1995. It was different. I believe it is important. One of the most important facts of CGI, and she can speak even more, are the principles of governance, which are valid to me, and they were decided by consensus in the year 2009, and since then they've been valid: privacy, rights, democratic governance, universality, diversity. The next slide, please. Innovation, neutrality of the network, which is something very important, and attribution. If someone does and performs incorrectly, who are going to be chasing? Who did it? Media can be responsible, but need to privilege the search. We need to be able to tell who caused the damage. Because in 2009 there were intermediaries like the courier, but things have changed, so it has to be revisited. This is almost the end. We have additional principles: functionality, a regulatory environment, and it has to preserve the dynamic of internet as a space for collaboration, which is also very important. Here we have centers that were created. Until 1997, nothing was charged. But as most of the cases, internet was free, and then in 1997 and 1998, we started to need resources, and with CGI, Nick, he was the most important person. He was able to reinvest Super Rabbit in permanent shares we still own today. There is a green resource, and this is the structure of NIC. NIC and CGI is our General Assembly. We have an administration board, three government representatives, and the other four can come from any region, five directors, and we have the different areas. The next slide, please. That is the definition. This is the General Assembly, the General Meeting, the General Assembly of CGI, five directors of the different areas. The next slide, please. The registry, as I said, is our source of resources. It has happened. This domain is the eighth one, 5 million registries. We have some ADNA because we have letters with accent. We have the accent. We have some of these symbols. We are the second with an SEC. This is domains in the country. And the next one, please. CERTEC, the CERT, it is our security center in the network, and it has an international activity. We have an agreement with our private data agency and the CERT, and they work very well. I only would like to say that CERT compiles, gathers all the incidents reported, and produces statistics, and it is very careful for not to unveil sensitive information. But we know the accidents and the Brazilian network. Here, this just celebrated 20 years. It is a UNESCO center. It does internet statistics, and it is internationally recognized. ITU uses it. Several institutions use it. This is comparable information at the international level. Here we have technical aspects, the internet exchange point, and the measuring of wideband, and courses, training courses. And this is the team that measures the bandwidth of connections to know how things work. We do the monitoring across the country to know which is the region working better, what is the available bandwidth. The next one, please. This is the interconnection point of San Pablo, which is the best, the biggest. It is an honor to say that. We have 37 terabits per second. This is the current traffic rate or traffic. The next one, please. This is the evolution of traffic. We were below Frankfurt, Amsterdam, London, but now we are above them, and this is because of our autonomous systems. Brazil has many autonomous systems, and it is good. The network is going to be more resilient, and we are doing well. And these are the resources that we can use from the names from the registries. We also have this web that is doing work to implement good web protocols, and it does inclusion of people with visual deficiency and things like that so that they can have access to the web content. Next one, please. And the last thing that was created recently, 2 years ago, which is the AI Observatory. It gathers data to subsidize eventual public policies, what happens to AI in the different sectors of the society. We have a repository of documents that can be seen by anyone. It is open. And we are also a type of internet exchange for the artificial intelligence centers that want to gather data and information. This is basically what it does. This is the end, and I apologize if I speak for a very long time. Very interesting. I didn't know that San Pablo exchange point has more traffic than the three largest in the world. Yeah, you are always at the vanguard. Good for Latin America. The truth is that I am amazed. And I have a question that I have for Demi, Percival, and Renata is 30 years, my experience working with the Argentinian government, with the private sector. Many, many times, institutionality of things changes with governments. And my question is how CGI has been capable of being this successful and pass all these years with the different governments. It is the natural rotation of democracy, which has been the resilience of CGI in all these years, and how has it consolidated with this model of multiple stakeholders, something that works very well. And another thing that I admire about CGI is that the different representatives or delegates, I don't remember the name, but they all participate, attend meetings all over the world, and they take the Latin American vision and Brazil vision. And Brazil is the most important country across the region. I admire you. I feel envy because Argentina doesn't have it, but it doesn't matter. I love you. And I really like this permanence in time. How have you made it possible? Because government is also part of CGI. I would like to comment. When I first started the presentation, I said that we were trying to stick to the original principles of the network. It doesn't depend on government. It is something that we see in the base of internet. So this is an argument in our favor because it will not change with government. Internet will not change with governments. Only that. Demi, very interesting presentation. And I believe you sent it. Can we share it with the interns? Yes, of course. Okay, good. Renata, would you like to continue? I want to understand how you've been able to be this present in the technological life of Brazil after all these years. with this successful model. I do not know if other countries have this successful model. I don't. I can't think now. Renata, would you please?
O Percival, não sei quem
Or
quer.
Percival, I do not know who wants to continue.
Percival?
Deixa aí, Percival, vai lá, qual foi?
Percival, Percival. I think Percival goes first. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. He's going to speak Portuñol slowly. De means Spanish is good. Let's listen to your Portuñol, Portuguese and Spanish. And people from Argentina and from Uruguay sometimes understand my words. I will be speaking about internet. Everything started as a space for collaboration. Today, digital platforms, many of the social, economic, and political interactions, in general terms, are immersed in those uh, opportunities to then give rise to actions. There is an opportunity to speak. We can speak about deregulation for an objective digital regulation. And there should be a decision. Digital services, telecommunications are the infrastructure that transports data. It is data transport. It is a pipes in tubes nonetheless, and in platforms. There is the backbone of internet. Open protocols, standards. We develop ITFs, ICA, IANA. It is open, and it was the base for innovation, and it is an original model. Digital services used by the platforms. It is that backbone. But it poses challenges, competence, content, and the power of market. There is a clear definition and distinction between telecommunications, the backbone, and digital services and platforms. We need to see the differentiated layers. It has a regulatory framework, and the digital platform is going to model the content. It will protect the governance multi-stakeholder model. It is necessary to protect the multi-stakeholder model, but it depends on the regulation of the platform, and it depends on the need. Layers then. Once we have seen the differentiation, I would like to now speak about the need for regulation. And November, internet started started as a public, decentralized space with open protocols. The regulation was seen as almost as a type of interference, and now it depends on the regulation to know if the backbone of open platforms is going to be affected. And if this is the situation, then it will be bad. I divide the internet and digital services in three important points in time: era of improvisation, the beginning, the open protocol, it was a utopic thought or concept. The second was the year 2000 up to 2015. We had Facebook, Google, and Meta, and the model change with data of about the performance and behavior, data of users, and then the interpreter apologizes because now the person is speaking Portuguese. The regulation started to be ambivalent. Ambivalent. In 2015, as of the year 2015, people were domain of platforms, facilities, and then in 2015 we started to see the concentration of political power, massive surveillance, there is a challenge to regulate the platform, the architecture. Without a regulation, there is a unilateral regulation of platforms. They are the ones that will tell us how many messages the code as a law versus the traditional law. We have some other difficulties. For example, the regulation, the traditional regulation that is facing many problems. The regulatory aspect. The lobbying capacity and the economic power will influence the regulatory process. And the regulators face the technical capacity and they need to have a deep knowledge to work in this very complex and dynamic environment. And we're speaking about the layers, the platforms. The regulation should depend on the needs and the higher the specificity, the higher the need to regulate the different services. Inequality. These are the different needs we have in the regulation. The need for transparency and democratic debate. The multi-sectorial model. Governance of CGI. The CGI model is like a lamp. It is important for people, for government, to take a role in the story, in history. Mm. really liked
definición de la
your
regulación de
definition of the regulation,
la self-regulation de
the
las
self
plataformas
regulation of
y
platforms.
considero que
And I
es
agree
muy probable que
that
necesitemos
there, there is a need to have global participation. CGI, this is what we want to do to promote the participation of our region that has a different problem from other regions. Now, I would like to ask Renata,
¿cuál es la clave
what
de
is the
haber
key
tenido un CGI tan
of having
exitoso,
to have this successful
tan
CGI?
representativo, no solamente de
Very
Brasil, sino a
representative,
nivel
not only of
mundial,
Brazil,
mantener ese
but the
estatus tan digno de
multi-stakeholder
categoría
model after all these years, despite of the governments and situations
en Brasil y sin embargo
of
ese
evolving
CGI
democracy.
funciona
Nonetheless, it's been 30 years of participation in this internet diverse community
digamos, de renombre internacional.
and with an international name.
Bueno, gracias, Olga. Un
Uh,
prazer estar aqui
Thanks,
com
Olga.
vocês
It is a
todos
pleasure
e
for
muito
me to be
sucesso
here with
amanhã.
you, even if it is virtually.
E não me voy a hablar mucho
I will not
porque
speak much
el festival
because both Demi and Percibao
mencionó muchas de nuestras
spoke
experiencias,
about many of our
de nuestros puntos de
experiences,
vista.
our
Tenemos,
opinions,
no sé cuánto tiempo tenemos,
but I
tenemos
believe
poco
we
tiempo
have only a
y
short
varios
time
anuncios.
because
Entonces voy a ser rápido.
I will try to be very straightforward.
Yo pienso que el éxito del
I believe
CGI
the
en
success
Brasil
of CGI in
está
Brazil
directamente
is directly
relacionado
related
con la decisión
to the
del
decision
gobierno
of the
brasileño
Brazilian
de
government
establecer
to
una
establish
gobernanza multiparticipativa
multi-stakeholder
que tiene la
governance
participación del
with the
gobierno, del sector
participation of government,
privado,
of
de
the
la
private
academia y
sector,
de
of
la
the
sociedad
academia,
civil.
and of the civil society.
Es verdade
It is true that
lo que ha dicho Demi,
what
que
Demi said,
estamos muy desilusionados
we are
porque tenemos como base de
the
nuestro
base of
trabajo los
our work
principios
is
que
principles,
son los guías, el guión de la Internet.
the
Pero
script in
se
internet.
entorpece la cuestión de la participación multisectorial
Without multi-sectoral
porque siento que
participation,
no tendríamos tanto éxito.
we wouldn't be this
Como
successful.
ha comentado Olga, tenemos la
And as
natural
Olga said,
alternancia
we have
de
natural
gobiernos. Todo
alternance
proyecto
of
alternancia
governments,
hay que
and
tenerlo
each time
claro,
there is
entenderlo
alternance,
vigente,
we need to
tener
clearly remember
compromiso
that government should
con la participación
honor
en la
its
gestión
commitment
multisectorial de
to
la Internet.
participation and multi-sectorial
Y no
participation
puede
of
seguir
internet.
así.
And
Esto
it
no
hasn't
puede
always been like
seguir.
this. It is
Pienso
important to
que
say
vivimos
this.
momentos muy
I
desafiadores
believe
para
we're
el
going
sistema
through very
público.
challenging moments.
El gobierno pasado de
And in the
Brasil
previous government,
intentó acabar
the
con el
one in
CGI.
Brazil, Brazil
No
wanted to
consiguió,
finish with
porque
CGI.
no
It is
consiguió
important to say
hacerlo,
it.
porque hay una
And
pretensión
it was not
de
possible
la
because
existencia del
there
CGI
is
en
a
el marco civil
reserve
de
for the
Internet. Porque
existence
el
of the
gobierno
CGI
aquí
in the code of
cerró
internet because
todos los
government
espacios de
closed
participación social,
every
no
social
solamente el
participation
CGI,
space, not only
porque el
the CGI,
CGI, como el tema de la
and
Internet,
because of
porque,
internet.
aunque se trataba de un
It
gobierno
was a
que
government
no tenía
that didn't
el
have
interés
the
de
interest
dialogar y de discutir
to
con
have a
el resto
dialogue
de la
and to
sociedad.
talk to the rest of the
Pero
society.
entonces la participación multisectorial,
The
multistakeholder,
multi-stakeholder
tiene una
participation
dinámica
has this
que
dynamic
posibilita, permite
that allows, enables
vista de
to have
distintas
different
perspectivas
perspectives and points of view,
haga un
to
diálogo
have a dialogue,
respetuoso
a respectful dialogue of these differences,
para se llegar a un proceso de
mm,
un
to
denominador común, un
reach a common
consenso
denominator,
posible.
a possible
Entonces,
consensus.
busca este
And when we look for this common denominator,
genera todo este proceso, siempre
the
tiene una
proposal
aportación
will
humana,
always be a very
porque
important proposal
tiene la contribución de los distintos
because we
actores.
have the contribution of the
Entonces,
different
todas estas
stakeholders.
propuestas están basadas
And when
en
these proposals
principios
are based on
del
principles,
pacto de la Internet,
the
la
Internet Decalogue,
iniciativa
which was the
para
initiative,
desarrollar 10 puntos que deberían
the
ser
initiative to tell
los
which are the
principios de
principles
uso
of the
de los
use
derechos, de los deberes, de
of
los
rights,
responsabilidades
of
que se
duties,
consideró la
stakeholders, and
nación.
Internet, and then we came
Entonces,
to the civil framework.
tiene la facilidad, la capacidad de
And then
tener un mismo espacio
when we have in the same
ese
space technical experience
expertise
and the
o
expertise
conocimiento técnico de lo
and
que estamos
technical knowledge of what we are
ellos
saying here
también mencionan la
and
diferencia entre
the both presenters have said, the differences of what is telecommunications, what is a level of intermediaries which is not like the others, and we have the different levels of application.
se tiene el conocimiento acerca de lo que se está diciendo
So when we know what is being said
la discusión es hecha
and the
con base en
discussion
el
is based
conocimiento
on this knowledge,
sin esconder, sin ocultar las diferentes
and
perspectivas de
to
muchos
maybe conceal
diferentes
the different
intereses
perspectives and even the interests, because it is clear to all of us
distintos
that there are
intereses
different
en la
interests
sociedad
in the
y en los
society
distintos
among
actores.
the different
Eso sí,
players.
con la
But
conciencia crítica,
with a critical
con conocimiento
awareness,
técnico y
with
aquí con un
technical
interés
knowledge,
público
guided by
para
a
los
public
intereses
interest apart from the
particulares. En muchos
private
casos también
interests that
los
exist, and if it is
mencionan
possible to sit,
esta nueva
and
mesa
if it is
para
possible to
poder
be in the same
desarrollar
room, and
hablar
if it is
sobre
possible
estas
to speak
perspectivas
about
y
all these
generar una
different
propuesta
perspectives and
que
to
tenga todos
generate
los
a
votos
proposal with the
razonables de
agreement
muchas
of
personas.
everyone. This final
Esta es
proposal is
la
going to be
única
very strong.
solución
To
en
me,
ese
this
sentido.
is the success of CGI because in the last 30 years
Ha sido
we
servidos
we have
en un
seen
proceso
the
que es
process.
difícil de lograr, no es fácil,
It
pero
is difficult. It is not easy,
nos exige mucha paciencia, pero
but we should be patient and we will have very, very powerful results. And this is what we see in the civilian framework of internet, and this is after the Brazil's participation in those discussions that we had in 2014, things that deeply contributed to international governance.
después también con las discusiones que tenemos aquí
And
en
then the
Brasil, no
discussions we have had in
solamente el hecho
Brazil,
de
it is not only the
incluir
CGI,
como técnicos de hablar en esta
it is the possibility that we have to talk, to discuss political aspects, because Nick
concentrado en la
is more focused
operación
on operations on the technical side.
tenemos esta
It is important
contribución
because we
que es
have
muy,
this
muy
contribution that
poderosa.
is very, very powerful
Entonces,
for
la
us.
discusión política en
The
CGI
political
genera
discussion in
no solamente
CGI has given rise to
pero
debates.
también hablamos y discutimos
We
y
also speak and we
perspectivas que
approve
tienen
perspectives
relación
which
con la
relate
necesaria
to
diferenciación
the
de
necessary
la
differentiation of the
estructura
layer of
económica
infrastructure,
de
of
ciertas
the
instituciones
logic layers
también
discussions
impacta
that will
precisamente
impact the
la
debate of
multistakeholder, la
universalization of access,
como
as
muchos
we had a debate.
para la conceptuación de la
Now we're
conectividad
speaking about
significativa,
meaningful
hablamos mucho de
connectivity.
la inclusión y ahí
We spoke
implica
about
una discusión
inclusion,
de debate
and there
para
was
telecomunicaciones.
something impacting telecommunications.
También nos estamos discutiendo mucho porque
And we
una
have
parte
discussed this a lot because in the powers of the CGI, it has been said that the CGI has to establish guidelines
el desarrollo de la Internet.
for the use and development of internet.
¿Qué es el uso?
What
¿Qué
is
es
the
la
use of
finalidad?
internet? The use
La
will happen
aplicación de los
The interaction of people will come and at the layer of applications. So we have the obligation,
tenemos el rol de debatir y discutir
we
también
have the role to discuss all those
tiene que
aspects
ver con
that are related to the third layer.
considerando, por ejemplo, tenemos
And
muchas
for
discusiones
example, there are
acerca de
many
la protección de
discussions
los datos
about
personales en la
protection of
información,
personal
con
data,
mucha
protection of privacy,
expertise de
with lots of
conocimiento técnico,
expertise and technical
toda la
knowledge.
CGI,
And this is why the CGI,
nosotros nos hemos
we are
posicionado
placed in a national
internacional,
reference and international reference position. We are invited to participate in public hearings at the Chamber of Deputies as well as with the National Congress. The private sector is also inviting us to speak about all these topics, the civil society, uh, childhood, adolescence, much before this boom that is a result of serious problems. But the CGI is addressing all these questions after more than 10 years, and this is why we are seen as a reference point, and with the support of all the actions perform all the actions taken, the surveys, for example,
datos que tengo de las discusiones acerca
data we get after discussing about applications, security.
más recientemente, ¿verdad?
More recently, Olga, I believe the
Mucha
CGI
atención para las
is paying
discusiones
attention.
acerca de la regulación de las
The
plataformas
discussions
digitales
about the regulation of the digital platforms as Percibao.
en una perspectiva de contribuir con la discusión a partir de una
Said
perspectiva multisectorial
to take a multi-stakeholder perspective to discuss the knowledge we have about how internet works and trying to do something that is difficult today,
cómo implementar
which is how to deal with a
el mismo
common
sistema, que
census,
tenga la misma
common sense.
votación, pero
No,
generar
uh,
una cierta
she doesn't know how it is said in Spanish,
simplificación del
to be
discurso
able to
porque
simplify the
Internet,
discourse because
porque dice que es
internet
todo genérico,
is a
el concepto
generic
de
term,
Internet, pero en la discusión
but in the
interna,
daily discussion,
pero cuando esta
when
generalización
this generalization
incorporada por aquellos que hacen las
is
leyes,
included by those who make laws
por el sistema de justicia,
and by in law enforcement,
generalización
the generalization could take us to wrong decisions that could have very negative impacts both for the digital ecosystem as well as for the internet. And I am speaking about the intermediate layer, but also speaking about the rights of people. So we have twin. In recent years, we have been discussing the regulation of platforms. So this capillarity of CGI to speak to the different sectors and to do it in a very wide manner and controlling Brazil. This is another ingredient. This is another aspect.
que estemos pasando por nuestro suceso, podemos decir así.
Our success relates to this. More than 15 years ago,
Realizando el foro de la
we've
Internet
been
en Brasil.
organizing the Brazil Internet Forum, which is our version of IGF.
Bastante muy importante y además es itinerante, no se pasa apenas en una ciudad, ya ocurrió
It goes to different
en
cities.
Manaus, ya ocurrió en el sur del país,
Manaus, in the southern part of the Brazil, Porto Alegre, in São Paulo, and other cities, El Salvador next week. So this capillarity and the courses of our School of Governance, other initiatives, public consultations, our seminar what we make available to the society with respecting the dialogue and the political consensus. This is what defines our model. But I wanted to express, and I want to finish my presentation by saying that we will now, we also have a very important discussion at the federal level, something that is related to the debate and the regulation of platforms. But it will significantly impact the civil framework of internet. To detail what is the responsibility of intermediaries about the content generated by users, and this is a discussion that is very contaminated by common sense, because when we speak about the regulation of internet, people think about the platform, but they see what they see, but they do not take into consideration what they do not see. So we made a technical note that I would like to share with you, which is a technical note about a type of app vendors and the intention. The aim is to try to somehow organize the debate, to show the differences between the different groups of people and the different applications. Because what and the information about internet protocols, everything is an app, but the apps are different. The same rule, the same regulatory remedy, regulatory medicine, and we could have problems if the situation is like this. So this was the last effort by the CGI to make a technical contribution based on result of a big debate that reach a consensus in every sector, private, government, civil society, and the academia, about one typology to subsidize the discussions with the judiciary and with Congress. If regulation is to be debated, but it has to be done knowing what they speak about and who is the object of regulation aimed to. And now we are in the framework of our celebration of 30 years of the CGII, and I quickly have some pen strokes of the things we've been doing in the last 20 years, and we did many more things, and I could be here all afternoon long to speak about the things we have done. But this is a challenging time, and today there is a legislative bill in the National Congress that is changing the structure of governance of internet in Brazil. And how does it change? It works with the regulating entity of telecommunications in Brazil, the responsibility of internet governance and all those attributions of CGI. And in case this is passed, this project is passed, will the Anatel and how the activities about the responsibilities, the separation between one a very regulated infrastructure, which is telecommunications, and the political regulatory design, and to mistake this with the governance of internet, this is very dangerous, because there is a difference between regulating the first or doing governance. All this should be made by different players in order to have this separation and the possibility of having a resilient, good quality internet, universal internet, and to make it a technological development instrument as well as for social inclusion. This is what I wanted to say, and thanks for the invitation. Thanks, Renata. I am amazed by what you said about the recent project. I agree that we are dealing with two different spaces, one very regulated, the one of telecommunications, and I believe the role of the CGI has been very good in the coordination of the VR point and to promote internet and digital inclusion across Brazil. We have questions by interns from Brazil. And thanks for the Portuñol. Perfect. She says that they spoke a beautiful Spanish and Portuguese. Hi, I am Francisco from Brazil, from the northeastern part of Brazil, and I belong to a CGI program in Brazil. Thanks to UFE program, I have participated in several fora, and I have represented the young community of Brazilians. And my question has to do with the governance fora. In Brazil, we have the Brazilian legislation, and we have had digital debates. Despite of the fact it is not mandatory, digital debates, and we also work with the general coordinator of the cloud infrastructure. You can be with us in line. So my question is, how do you organize fora in order to strengthen the multi-stakeholder model? How can we get contributions, and how can we promote a greater integration of different stakeholders of internet governance, because these are spaces adequate for digital public policies? Thank you, he says. Do we have another question? My name is Arnaldo, and I am also from Brazil. I will try to speak Spanish. I do not know if I will be speaking Spanish or Portuguese. And as Francisco said, my question is, if I want to understand if there is a vision about changes in which we participate and introduce members of minority groups and the multi-stakeholder model or representation. I believe it is an important aspect. 30 years ago, for example, we were not debating about gender parity, and we were not speaking about marginalized groups like the LGBT and black people communities. And if we see the structure we have today in Brazil, we have a representation that will not necessarily present gender parity, and it will not have the active presence of marginalized groups. And this is something that makes me think if multi-sectoralism or multi-stakeholders actually presents those voices that will not be present at the debate places. What is the change? Because we want marginalized people to have a voice in those spaces. One more question, and then we will have the answers.
Encerrada a categoria brasileira. Meu nome é Mariana, venho do Brasil, venho do programa Youth do CGI. Eu quero agradecer
I would
pela
like to thank
oportunidade. Eu gostaria de adicionar um pouquinho retorno à pergunta do Francisco. Estamos aqui no Fórum Comite com bastantes
we are
colegas de
here
muitos
with
países.
many colleagues from many
Isso nos
countries.
permite a importância de pensar várias
It is
questões
the
em
right moment to think about governance of internet in Latin America. So I want to understand CGI activities in fora for the development of Latin America. I know the activities of CGI in other spaces. Will you please speak about all these activities?
Obrigada pelas perguntas.
Thanks for your questions. Who would like to answer?
Eu acho muito oportuno a pergunta porque podemos desenhar
Timely questions.
vindo com uma linha de tempo
We could draw a timeline
do recuo com linha de tempo, linha de tempo.
to define it in time.
El principio de la internet,
Since the beginning of internet,
quem são as pessoas,
who are the people?
el modelo
What is the
tradicional,
traditional model?
quem são as pessoas que estão no governo
Who are people in government? Who
e
are
como
those in government?
podemos
And how
defender o
do we
modelo
defend the
sectorial.
multi-sectorial
Nós
model?
somos dizer melhor que é o modelo perfeito,
We can
mas
say it is a perfect model.
que criamos agora e a melhor ferramenta para que possamos criar o futuro que se deseja.
It is the best tool to change
Se
to the
temos
future we want to have, the future we desire.
no Fórum
And if
Internacional
today
a
we are
partir da
with
iniciativa do
people,
CGI,
and if they work
queremos
with a CGI initiative, this will be the beginning.
queremos mais, queremos
But we
que
want more.
no Brasil a
In
representação
Brazil,
de Congresso
the
Nacional
representation of the National Congress has
queremos
gender parity.
alternativa
We offer
bloco
alternatives.
da bala, da Bíblia, queremos que ter coloque as pessoas, retrato das pessoas de Brasil. Então, se nós vamos fazendo nossa parte,
We do our best,
nós estamos muito longe, muito distante,
but we know we are distant
mas bem
from the aim, from the goal.
onde estávamos
But we need to have a timeline to know where we were 20 years ago, 10 years ago.
havia sequer retrogradismo.
Are there more comments? If not,
Sim, sim, eu quero comentar.
I would like to comment. Olga, please.
Obrigada pelas
I really appreciate your questions.
porque vou tentar ser o mais
I will try to express my thought about the questions. First,
no que colocou Francisco acerca
what Francisco said.
de quando se entenderia acerca de los foros
If I understood him, international fora,
que esses espaços
how to make these spaces be
produzam, mas
to produce more resolutions,
que tenham um impacto concreto
to have a concrete impact in the infrastructure of governance. I believe this is a very important challenge.
no último, em 2024, há um ano,
In 2024, a year ago in Brazil, in São Paulo, we organized the MASDES international event where we discussed the steps we need to take, the steps we need to take to improve internet governance infrastructures. And the question is how to make concrete spaces to produce guidelines, to produce considerations to come to resolutions, to make recommendations for the structures of governance, and I believe this is something important. But it is not that easy.
São espaços que
These are the
vivem
spaces
por
that,
exemplo, Chile, no Brasil,
like the CB in
600
Brazil,
pessoas.
600 people.
Como
So,
produzir
how to produce
resoluções de recomendações
resolutions or
com
recommendations
a participação de efetivamente
with
600
effective
pessoas.
participation of 600
Não é
people?
simples,
It is not that
porque
easy.
também no nosso caso deveria ser algo como que
But
apenas
we
parecer
do
que
not
estamos
want to
fazendo
do
e
something to
não
say
ter a
that we're doing something
participação de
without
todos os
having the
desde
participation,
abaixo para cima, de todos que estão participando.
and to
Também
work with
podemos
all the
assistir
attendees,
a
with all the ones who
nós
participate. In the
hicimos
case of
uma
Brazil,
oficina onde convidamos várias pessoas que ao longo dos últimos
we
anos
spoke about recent
participaram
years.
pelos fóruns pela internet, tanto pelo
We
setor
had the presence of the
terceiro
private
setor,
sector, the academia, the government sector, and CGI. People who were not CGI, but people who are regular participants in order to do a research, an investigation, and to find points to be improved or to improve the structure of the forum. This is what we are doing, but it is a process and we need to have it internally. In all spaces of participation, we need to make changes in order to make them more perfect, more effective, and more democratic and more open. I do not have an easy answer. The solution is that we need to be attentive and we're discussing all these questions. In the last forum, obviously, some time to discuss not the results but what the office says. We need to work with the members of the forum. We are in this process in order to improve the participation and about communities, vulnerable communities, about women, LGBTQ plus community, black people, these people with disabilities, and we should not forget about these people with these disabilities. This is a question. Because first, we can say that black people at the CGI are those who represent the civil society, and the third sector, the private sector and the academia, as we say here, they are elected by their own peers. So there is a process where entities and where organizations of the different sectors will make an electoral structure. Runners will be decided, and those who are the candidates of the civil society will be embraced by the civil society, and it is these entities, the ones of the they are the ones that bring the representatives. How to create material for the different vulnerable communities. How to establish what is parity in an electoral process, and stories belong to sectors. I do not want to say that we do not have a problem to deal with. I am simply saying that the problem is more complex because of the structure. It is an electoral process. A government doesn't have the role to say that the civil society is the one that has to choose people for the CGI. But today we have this proportion. And today we have, for example, we have two representatives of the civil society. They happen to be two men and two women. In the academic community, we have three men, but in the based one we have three men and one women. The private sector, which is always the most difficult one. Uh, to address the needs to have diversity. There we have four men. In government we have four women. It is me, the first one, because I was the first one. We also have other women who come from very central ministries, MGI, MGI, and the Ministry of Industry. So it is a process that we need to take into consideration. We need to also speak about how treat people from the minority communities. We have only one group with biannual publications by the university, produced by the LGBT community, by black and by disabled people or people with disabilities. And in the last CB forum, of internet forum, we have lots of people in the role of diversity, and it was beautiful because it was the meeting with being the most diverse in history. And this is, we are aware of the fact that there is a role to guarantee the participation of those people. We also have the CGI cameras where we were trying, or chambers, where we were trying to speak about LGBTQ and gender characteristics. So it is not easy. Of course, it is not easy. But in terms of the composition of the committee, we have a challenge because a school of representatives will go through an electoral process, and then we need to understand how we're going to guarantee in this process, how we're going to guarantee the definition, because if government comes and says that this needs to happen, the sector may not fully agree because of different names and different realities. I do not want to minimize the problem. I do not want to say that we don't have things to do. We know what to do speaking about CGI, but speaking about the elections and speaking about the representation, we have sectors. They have the commitment. They made a commitment to introduce people to guarantee this and to think about other processes which are going to be democratic processes, to be able to work with electoral processes, but doing indications of thinking about vulnerable communities. I wanted to say that if you have suggestions, concrete proposals on how to do this, the infrastructure we have, which is not perfect, but which is the best we have, and to include all these aspects in our work. This is it. Thanks, Olga. A round of applause for our colleagues of CGI. Thanks for the effort to speak Spanish. You did well. Thanks so much.
Espero que el CGI siga adelante con todo el éxito que ha tenido todos estos
I
años
hope you continue with the support.
y la participación. Les mando un abrazo de acá de todos nosotros desde México. Saludos de Adrián.
I come from Mexico on behalf all the presenters and interns. We salute you and we will see you virtually